Hello, I'm Dr. Harper. This video is in Management of Operations. This is the memo assignment, memo number 3, Crawford Manufacturing Aggregate Planning. So let's bring up the memo. So in this memo, Crawford Manufacturing is preparing their monthly production plan for one of their major products for the next year and requested assistance in determining possible plans of actions. They have traditionally used levelized capacity with overtime, but members of the planning committee would like to compare current production strategies with alternative production plans. Two have been suggested. One is simply a minimum cost production plan. So now we have two plans going on now, a levelized capacity and minimum cost production. Some feel the current amount of overtime is unreasonable due to the level of strategy and argue that considerable savings could be realized if overtime was reduced. The second alternative reduces inventory to a minimum. So there are three different suggestions, three different plans on the table. Levelized capacity, minimum cost, and reducing inventory to a minimum. Some argue that flexibility of the current production plan allows for reducing the cost due to carrying inventory. The president would like to see a comparative analysis before a decision is finalized. She requested us to provide a comparative analysis, and I said we could provide her with quality analysis. So there are three plans, and essentially the president would like a comparative analysis. And in a comparative analysis, we're comparing the three analyses. We're not making decisions on saying this is the best or this is the worst. We're saying here are the three, and these are the comparisons, and here are the things that we're going to compare. Okay, Crawford has provided us with the following information. Okay, here comes the problem. So let's bring up Excel and input these problems as we get them. Okay, first of all, let's increase this so we can see what's going on here. Okay, so this will be the Memo 3, and this is going to be Crawford Manufacturing. Okay, that's good. So let's come over here and start putting this in. Labor standard. Okay, now we have our labor standard. Okay, LS will equal, let's just do this for now and write justify. It's going to equal 80. That's going to be minutes per unit. Okay, there they are. The regular time labor costs, okay. Now we have well, first of all, when we have labor standard, let's get the production standard. Production standard PS equals. Okay, and if we notice down here, we will be looking at months. So we want a production standard in months. Okay, and so this is going to equal 40 hours a week times 52 weeks divided by 12 months in a week, and that's how many hours per month. Divide that by 80 minutes divided by 60 minutes in an hour to transform minutes to hours. And that's going to be 130 units per month. That's our production standard. Okay, so that turns out to be our production standard. And there we go. Okay, now what's next? Let's see here. The regular time labor cost at $36 an hour. Okay. Regular time cost equals 36, and that's going to be dollars per hour. Okay, and then our overtime. Overtime cost will equal $54 per hour. Okay, Now we have cost per hour. We're going to want the cost dollar per unit of production, because that's pretty much how we do things. So let's put an equal sign here. That's going to equal, and that's going to equal. Let's just transform that to hours. And so when we do that, essentially we want, well, if it's $36 per hour and every unit takes 80 minutes, okay, so then we'll just essentially say equals 36 times 80 divided by 60 to again, minutes to hours. That's going to be $48 per unit. Dollars per unit. Likewise here, equals is 54 times 80 divided by 60 will be $72 per unit. Okay, that's what we're going to be using when we do our cost of our production. Okay, let's see what's next. The unit carrying cost is $12 per item per month. Okay, carrying cost. C sub C equals 12, and this is going to be dollars per unit per month. Let me just say month. Let's expand this a little bit to include all of that. And so, well, we can do it per month, or probably what we'll be doing is just having our cost per unit per year. That's going to equal 12 times 12 months in a year. That's going to be dollars per unit per year. And we'll probably be using that. We can use both of them if we want. We may use both of them. Okay, what's next? Okay, we're coming down here. Okay, FTE. Oh, this is the FTE time standard. 40-hour work, 52 weeks in a year, 12 months in a year. Okay, so we got that. For planning purposes, next year they will begin the year with an inventory of 2,000, and they have targeted an ending annual inventory of 1,500. Okay, so we have a beginning inventory. BI of 2,000, and the ending inventory is 1,500. I didn't say that, but it's the annual. Beginning annual, ending annual. I probably should say that in there, but I'll just put it in there. Okay. Let's see here. Their regular time production capacity is limited to 35 FTEs per month. Okay, that's going to be important. So this one, we're going to have our regular time max equals 35 FTEs per month. Okay, that's a max. We can't go above that. But then we could also say at the max, the production equals, okay, let's see, if it's 35 FTEs per month, then how much can you produce per month? Well, you have 130 units per month. So this will equal 35 times 130. So this is units per month. That's the maximum production. We can go over that. So we may want to limit our FTEs. We may want to limit our production. But the 35 FTEs per month and a production of 4550 per month is the same thing. Okay, so we can use either one of those or both if we want to. Okay, what's next? Let's bring this up here. The overtime is limited to 20% of regular time production in each month. Oh, okay, well, that's good. Let's bring this let's bring our Excel back. Bring this up here. So now right here, we're going to have an overtime max will equal, I'm just going to put a 20 in here and say this is going to be percent of regular time production. Okay, each month. Since labor hours per week are flexible, there is no hiring and firing cost considered. So they're not considering that. For this analysis, only consider costs due to regular time labor, overtime labor, and inventory carrying. Well, there we go. We have them. The demand for next year is presented in the table. Okay, there's our demand. Okay, so let's take this, move this out of the way. Let's take this here, right here, Control C, and let's bring this back, full screen it, and let's put it right here for now. Control V to paste it in. Okay. Now let's just bring these down. Let's do these again. Control C. Come back here. We'll format them here in a minute. Let's see here. And let's transpose this. There we go. Control C, and then let's paste all the values. So now they're just values, and we disengage the link, erase this, and this is pretty much what we're going to start using. Let's take away the formatting, the boxes there. Okay, so there's our monthly demand, and there we go. Okay, so the first thing let's do, let's do a minimum cost production plan. Let's start with that, and then we can come back and make this Arial and 10 to be consistent with everything else. Let's start with that, because then after that we will be able to modify it for the minimum inventory and level capacity. So we'll start with the minimum. We'll bold that and underline it. We'll start with that. Okay. So let's start with our regular time production and our overtime production, and let's let both of these let's center these. Let's let both of these be our decision variables. So let's box it in and let's shade it in. These are our decision variables. That's our regular time and overtime. Okay. Now let's go ahead and put an FTE here. This FTE will simply, I can bring down here our production standard of 130. I'll just leave it up there. The FTE will equal our regular time divided by the 130 F4 to freeze. Okay, so now I can bring that down. So we have our FTEs there. Okay, then let's have our regular time max. And since these are going to be in units here, this will equal the 4550. And let's just bring this down. Okay, so I'm tying these up here. So if we ever want to come back and change any of our parameters, we can. Okay, we're not right now, but we could if we wanted to. Okay, that's our regular time max. Now our overtime max. Okay, remember the overtime max here is 20% of the regular time production. Okay, so that equal to the regular time production times 20%. Well, this is just 20, so let's put a 20 there, F4 to freeze it, and divide by 100 to have that 20 into a proportion, and then copy that down. And so there's that. So the regular time max, overtime max, those are our two constraints we're going to have. Looks good. Okay, now let's look at our beginning inventory and our ending inventory. Okay, our beginning inventory is equal to 2,000. Our ending inventory, our conservation equation here, equals our beginning inventory plus our production, which is overtime production plus regular time production minus our demand. And this is going to equal the beginning inventory equals the ending inventory of the previous time period. And now we can just copy this down all the way down. Here's all the way down to the end. So there is no hiring and firing, so we don't really need the hire and fire or left-hand side and equilibrium equations. We're just looking at inventory in this one. So let's center these, make these look a little better so we don't get mixed up. Now, here is our problem. So what I want to do is box this in so we make sure we get all the values. Because now we're going to come down here and let's just take a sum of these. Let's sum all of these. And let's sum all the regular time and the overtime. Let's go ahead and sum the FTEs. I think that's all we need there. Just to know what's happening here, if we ever need that information. Now over here, we will want the average, okay, of our inventory. And that's going to be all of these. And there they are, okay. And then we have our unit cost, and then our total cost, okay. Now our regular time here, our regular time unit cost per unit is 48. Our overtime unit cost per unit is 72, and our unit cost of carrying inventory over a whole year, because this is annual, equals 144 per unit per year. Okay, then the total cost down here equals this sum times how many each of those cost, equals this times how much each of those cost, unit cost, equals the average times that unit cost. Okay, we're doing good. We're setting it at, whoops, you didn't see that. Let me do this again because you couldn't see it. My face is in the way. Okay, equals this times this, equals this times this, and this over here is equal this times this. Good. And then over here, let's have the total. That will equal this plus this, because that's pretty much what we said here. For this analysis, consider only cost due to regular time, overtime, carrying. There's regular time, overtime, and over here behind my face again is the carrying cost. Let's bring it over. And there's the carrying cost. So this right here would be the total. So let's center all these so that they're easier to read. There we go. And these we can write justify just to make them look better. Okay, now, I guess also what I want to do here is just to be careful. Let's go ahead and box this in and shade this in. Okay. And also we have these right here. We don't need the heavy box. We'll do the light box. And these right here, the light box. And then this right here is the total. And this is the sum. And this is all of it. Okay, just to format this a little bit. Now what we do want this to be thick, and we want this to be thick, because these are our decision variables right there. And there's our objective function. So I think we're ready to solve this thing. Okay, clean this up, bold, underline. Okay, so let's solve this thing. Let's go to Data and Solver. There we go. Now our objective function down here, you can see here our objective function is going to be that. And then come up here. We want to minimize our cost, right? By changing the variable cells, it's going to be the regular time and overtime. And there they are, right? Okay, now we're going to add. Okay, well, we have our regular time max. So our regular time here is less than or equal to our regular time max, add. Our overtime here is less than or equal to our overtime max. Okay, come over here. And now our ending inventory is greater, whoops, I forgot to say add. This is going to be E is less than our overtime. Okay, real time, made a mistake. Now I'll add, we'll go back and check these to make sure they're right. Our ending inventory now is going to be greater than or equal to 0. Add, our ending annual inventory is going to be equal to, what is it up here? It's 1,500. And there they are. Say OK. Non-negativity constraints. Here, let's do the simplex algorithm. And let's go ahead and solve this thing. Whoops. I missed the solve. Here it is. Okay, let's solve this thing. It found a solution. Solver found a solution. And I say OK. But let's make sure this is right. Don't want anything wrong. Let's go to solver. Let's check it to make sure. There's the objective function value. It's minimized. Boom. There's our constraints. We can see they're highlighted. Now the D is less than or equal to G. The D is less than or equal to G. The E is less than or equal to H. E is less than or equal to H. The J is greater than or equal to 0. And the J here, the J of 27 equals the E of 9, yes. And just make sure this is 27, 27, 27, 16, 16, 16, 16, 27, 16, 27. Solve it. Yep, I think this is good. There's the first part. So this is information we can use for the minimum cost plan. Okay, and let's just label this spreadsheet minimum cost. Now they also wanted level capacity because that's the traditional. So let's control left click and copy this over and call this one, rename this the level capacity. Okay, now remember level capacity simply means that the well, notice we're going to have overtime here. So level capacity simply means that the record time is all going to be the same. Okay, so we can do this a number of ways. Let's just change this. Let's see. Let's put it this way. Let's go in here, go to solver, and here D. Let's take D and let's change it. Instead of less than or equal to the max, let's make it equal to the max. And then say OK, and then solve it. And so notice what we did here. We forced this to be level. Okay. And then what we did is it's level, but then we minimize the cost with overtime. Okay. And so that could be our level plan. So let's change this to say level capacity. Because that's what it is. Okay, now this is the second spreadsheet we can use to pull things off and compare with the minimum cost one and the level capacity. So there's the second one. Okay, and we can see the costs. Here's the inventory. We can compare the inventory. We can compare the overtime production, where it's at, etc. We can compare that with a minimum cost. Here's the inventory. Here's the minimum cost. This is how the overtime is spread out. So there's a lot of things here to consider. Okay, we can do the total cost and the cost of regular time, overtime, and inventory on both of these right here. So we can compare those. But wait a minute, there's one more, minimum inventory. So let's go back to the let's go back to the let me bring back Excel. There it is. Okay, let's go back to minimum cost and copy this over again. And instead of minimum cost, let's rename this minimum inventory. Okay, and even call it that, minimum inventory. Now, what does that mean? Well, there's a number of things it could mean. We could define that in all different ways. Okay, we could say we can minimize the maximum, we can minimize the average, we can minimize the cost. What does it mean to have minimum inventory? You know, who knows what that means? Okay. So the idea here is that, okay, well, let's what should we do? Well, as a group, I don't know. You can do it any way you want, because I'm good with. I think nobody in the group will argue with whatever you want to do. Probably the easiest way that I would think to do this is, let's just solve this instead of minimizing the total cost. Let's just take that off, no fill, and let's minimize the average inventory. Let's just define it that way. And now we have to tell them that, okay? Like, oh, well, minimum inventory, we'll just minimize the average inventory. That's all we did. And so that'd be easy to do, because now we go into solver. There it is. Instead of minimizing the total here, we'll just minimize the average inventory. Why not? Okay. Or, we could also just minimize the cost. Actually, that might be a better way to do it. Instead of the total cost, let's minimize right here. Let's minimize the total inventory cost, because there's still cost, but it's total. But now they said minimum inventory. Nah, let's do minimum average. Okay, it's not minimum cost of inventory, it's the minimum inventory. Let's solve this thing and see what happens. It found a solution, and this is really, I think we mentioned this. This is e to the 10 to the minus 12th. So this is for our data. Let's just put a number in there. That's all that is. It's 0. So what we did here is here's another one that's just 0. Okay, these don't go completely to 0, but they're close enough. Okay, so the idea here is that we do have minimum cost defined that way. So this problem has minimum cost. That's pretty straightforward. Level capacity. That's straightforward. That's only one type of production plan. But then minimum inventory. That's not really a definition of a aggregate plan. It's more of a characteristic, and then you can achieve minimum inventory more than one way. So I did it this way. If you want to do it another way, you can set these tables up and you can do it however you want to do it. But I think in comparison, we certainly need to compare the costs, that's for sure. I think the inventory is important, and I think the overtime is important. All three of those, I think, are important. So we have all three of them here on these three tables. And so the three tables there, you can pull things out and you can put together your presentation within your memo to compare the three different ones and see what the relationships are between them. So I'll leave that up to you on how to do that. Okay, so what we could do is let's create this. Let's take this right here. Copy this. Go to the next one. Open this up. Actually, let's bring this over, do it this way, and let's rename it compare. And I'll just get us started here. In this comparison, we have, I want to bring this down here. There we go. And these are just the costs here. Oops. Paste the values. And this is the total. Whoops. Let me get my fingers in the right. Total. There we go. So this is level capacity, correct? Yes, level capacity. And then the next one over is going to be minimum cost and the minimum inventory. Okay. And the minimum cost, where's that at? Here's the minimum cost. That's right here. Control C to copy that. Come over here to compare and paste the values. And those are. And then minimum inventory. Come here, minimum inventory. Take these, Control C, go to compare, and then right click in the values. So there they are. Okay. So what we could certainly do is bring these over and somehow do some kind of a bar chart if you want to. I'll let you do this. This is really your area of expertise in doing this. So you can do a bar chart here. You can do it. You can do a clustered bar chart. You can column here. You can stack it. You know, this kind of thing. Or you can do horizontal if you like that better. However you want to do it. You can have 3D, but you can do that if you want, or 3D perspective and this kind of thing, and 3D horizontal perspective. However you want to do it, I'll let you figure that out on how you want to compare it. I think each one of us would do it differently. You're in charge of communications, so I'll let you do it however you want to do it, and whatever you think is reasonable. So that's all I have for this memo to support on how to move forward. So I hope this helps, and I hope in the comparison that you can provide a comparative analysis on as many things as they need, because they did ask us on all three of these things so they can discuss. That's all I have. Between now and the next time I see you, I want to urge everyone to be safe and take care.